video up, that I'm going to wear my first jacket first. Here we go. Here we go. The miracle is it still fits. We all know that. Let's see back. Oh, does it?
Yeah. Oh, USA.
So 1988 was a very special time. The Olympic Committee decided that there should be the first ever women's sailing event. And I was right place, right time. I'd rather be lucky than good, and I was. Interestingly, I lived in Los Angeles in 1984 when the Olympics were there, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's cool. I watched them. But then all of a sudden they announced there's going to be a women's event in 4 years. The first ever. I'm like, oh! Everyone said, you have to do it. I'm like, but I'm a computer programmer. I'm not going to do this. They said, you have to do it. And they were right. So, the interesting thing is when they were first lobbying for a women's only event, I was opposed. Okay? So, go back in time. Imagine I'm in graduated college in 1978. So I'm definitely in that era of women are at least equal to men. We don't need our own event. I could beat men all day. so why should there be a special event for women? But then I realized some ugly truths. Well, not ugly. Sometimes they're gorgeous. And that is something called strength to weight ratio. At the time, I weighed 125 pounds, and I worked out a lot in the gym, and I was strong. However, the men's 470 top sailor was maybe 3 or 4 pounds more than me. He could outlift me and never went to the gym. I'm like, that's not fair. That's testosterone. Oh, well, what can you do? That's number one, strength to weight ratio. For the same weight, inevitably, men will be stronger just because of testosterone. Number two, when I looked at all of the other, not all, but predominantly the men who were campaigning for the Olympics, they were sailmakers, they were boat builders, they were representatives of Harkin, they had all of the industry jobs. I was a computer programmer, my crew was in hotel management. They had those sailing jobs, and they were getting paid by their companies to do these campaigns. So it was two-pronged. It was strength to weight ratio plus the financial aspects of not having that foot in the door. And I went, okay, fine. They're going to put up a women's event? I'm going for it. We were not favorites, but a lot of cards fell into place, and it worked out for us. Susan, thank you so much. I'm going to cue you up. Here are some little things, but if we get a signal, from the 1988 Olympics.
Welcome back to Busan, site of the yachting competition of this Olympic Games. In sailing, when you're doing well, you tend to get more conservative out on the race course. And when you're not doing well, you get a little bit more aggressive. Those behind tend to learn from their mistakes. It all makes for some very exciting racing. And race 5 gave the competitors a lot of excitement. 25-knot winds and 8-foot seas challenged everyone. The boats were sailing at peak form. This was the roughest day in Olympic competition history. The waves were created by the strong currents going into the wind. 216 votes started the racing today. 59 would not reach the finish line. In the 470 women's division, the United States team got off to a slow start. A major mistake. Lynn Jewell and Allison Jolly capsized right off the starting line. They have hopes for a gold medal, and up until this point have been leading the series. They battled back. The waves increased as the day went on, and the Americans were not about to give up. By the fourth mark, they were in second place behind East Germany. The chase was on. At the final mark, the Americans were just 5 boat lengths behind. They ended up in second. In the soling class, world champion John Kostecki from San Francisco had his worst start of the series. With his crew, Bob Dillingham and Will Taylor, they're used to conditions like this sailing in San Francisco Bay. But when it's rough, sometimes...
Those are Cupids.
What was it blowing?
28.
Jeez.
Eight foot waves and about 28 knots of breeze. If you look really closely at the mini boat, it's anchored and the stern is in the wind. That's how much current there was. Paul Elstrom just port-tacked the fleet in a catamaran. That's why he's the wizard.
They've been struggling with this series, but today they were back. The toughest thing is holding on. In the men's 470 class, John Shine from Long Beach, California, finished fifth today. There was trouble all over the race. But they made it. In the fin class, it's awful tough going. It's lonely out there on the water by myself. But the fin sailor is a special breed. U.S. Navy officer Ryan Ledbetter finished 20th today and began 13th for the series. Canada got a great ride.
See that committee boat?
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of current.
Sailing in strong wind conditions is not for the faint-hearted.
Thank you so much, Susan, for putting that on. That's actually a 45-minute. It's 45 minutes, and she was able to download the whole thing, get it uploaded, and all of that computer nonsense. And thank you again. All right. So I was originally opposed to having a women's event, and now I see how many women sailors were impacted by that right there. It is so gratifying to me that I was able to help with the cause of promoting women in sailing, and not just as sailors, but in the profession. And I think that's the key part when you look at the America's Cups and you look at the maiden, when you look at the solo around the world races. Women, I think, are recognized as being equal in ability, but perhaps not afforded the opportunities. And I think that's what we're looking at here. stories about the medal. I'll start with one of them. The opening ceremonies were amazing. We were in Seoul, and most Olympic opening ceremonies, there are these lovely white doves. They recognize they're emblematic of peace, and they opened up these cages to release the white doves, and they were trained to do one circle around the stadium and then leave. Well, 4 of them decided to perch up on the Olympic flame, which is about 300 feet up in the air. And the flame is going, and the birds are perched on it, thinking it was a bird bath. I'm thinking, we're going to have roast dove for dinner. Luckily, that didn't happen. They made it safely. But that was the big opening ceremony in Seoul. We then traveled down to Busan, which is like going from Seattle to Miami.
Wow.
Only in Korea, so it wasn't, it was a 2-hour flight. Like one end of the country to the other end of the country. So we went down to Busan, which is where the sailing took place. And they had a miniature opening ceremony for all of the sailors. And we were fortunate that we got to go to Seoul and watch the big one, but many teams didn't. So they had these cages with these birds, and I'm looking at them, and I'm thinking, they are not white doves. Well, it turns out that in the Korean language, and back in '84, the Koreans had sent delegates, and they looked up, oh, you do this, and you put the doves, and they fly around. But the same word in Korean works for dove, and pigeon. So in Busan, there were these little gray pigeons that were but that's okay. We liked it anyway. Let's see. Oh, another good story. We'll save that for the very end. I'm going to switch jackets right now, and I'm actually going to go to what's that, Bulls? Go Bulls.
All right.
So no calculators in the room are allowed at this exact moment, because I started out at Columbia University in chemical engineering, but I spent my entire first year, my freshman year, sailing, and my parents said, we're not paying Ivy League education for you to sail. You pick a school in Florida. Unfortunately, or fortunately, who knows, at the time, UF was the only option for chemical engineering, but they had no sailing team. And they were in Gainesville. Sorry, Gators. The only school in Florida that had a sailing team was FSU. But they had no engineering program at that time. So I gave up the engineering degree so I could keep sailing for the FSU team. Ended up winning the A division at the Women's Nationals. I majored in chemistry, minored in math, close enough. When I graduated, I worked as a chemist for 5 years. I made industrial egg washes up in Georgia, made all kinds of really cool things, and loved it. I loved chemistry, but then I got an entry-level, believe it or not, Susan, job as a computer programmer in Long Beach, California. I moved there, worked for 20 years as a computer programmer, but in the meantime, all of my family was here. I was born and raised across the bridge in St. Pete, and came back. I had never, ever wanted to do sailing as a profession. I thought it would ruin my love for the sport. I was a purist, but I needed a job. So, believe it or not, do I have anyone from Davis Island?
Oh, yeah.
Yep, I did. Yep. Davis Island offered me a job coaching their high school teams, which were Plant High School, Jesuit, what's Jesuit's counterpart?
Tampa Prep?
Tampa Catholic.
No.
Our Lady,
Berkeley.
Holy Name.
Academy. Oh,
And
Academy.
Berkeley Prep. Those were the teams at the time. And I loved it. I thought, oh, maybe I should have been doing this. After 2 years, the USF varsity sailing coach job opened up. And everyone, once again, all my friends, you've got to apply. I'm like, no, like, you have to. I've been doing that for 18 years. Do not do the math. That's why I say no calculators. 5 plus 20 plus 18 comes up to a very big number. I started working when I was 3. I absolutely adore coaching college students. I don't have to deal with the parents anymore. And I'm really able to pass on that love of the sport as well as the reliance on academics. They are student athletes. What's the first word you heard? Students. Students first, and athletes. This organization just recognized last year Kate Brunsvold, from Sarasota, who's a junior on my team, majoring in, I believe, mechanical engineering. Fabulously student. She went to nationals with us. We'll go to nationals again, and that's what sailing is all about. It's using, and she's the killer in the weight room as well. It's combining the physicality and the intelligence and putting it all together. Those of you who sail sunfish on a windy day, you know what it's about. You gotta be physical and you gotta use the brain. So that was kind of my original love for sailing, is that combination of being a mental and a physical thing. I used to say 3 things: physical, mental, and agility. I don't say agility anymore. That went out the door a little while ago, but you all get the idea. I don't know if you have read, but at the last national championship in May up in New York, there was a women's division, there is an open division, and these are all competed separately. And the team racing division, it's a little bit different sport, but that's all right. Stanford University in California won the open division against men with an all-women's team.
Wow.
Yes! And I think that their path to success was in recognizing women and girls as youthful sailors, that they can compete against men, but giving them that opportunity to be confident enough in themselves early on. So, yes, I just love what I do for USF. And if you have children, grandchildren, I'm very happy to talk to you about colleges. I'm going to look at Sue back there. When your child or grandchild is accepted to an Ivy League, am I hurt? Yes. Am I happy? Yes. Okay? Not every school is right for every person, but USF is definitely right for some people, and I appreciate your thoughts and medical donations for USF. We are ranked 15th in the country. Our women's team is 15th in the country, and we're hungry for more. So there we go. I did promise one more story. Here we go. I'm gonna put the other jacket on. Oh, by the way, remember that capsize?
Yes.
We were disqualified. In 1988, if you hit the mark, do you know what happened to you? You were out.
Wow.
There was no 360, none of this mammy-pammy stuff. You hit the mark, you were out. If there was a starboard port situation, you were out. There was no 720 rule. I'm from the old school, all right? So it was deemed that we fouled the starboard tack French boat. And it looks like that from that angle when we capsized. However, we had long since capsized. You'll see, I'm slamming my boat, slamming my hand on the side of the hull, and then the French boat tacks. We did not foul them. After that, there was another angle from another press boat, and they said, oh, they were totally clear, they should not have been thrown out of the race. But we were, but it didn't matter, we still got the gold. Okay, here's my last story. This is it. Here we go. The medal ceremony happened. We got our medals. My partner, who is just unbelievable. She's my best friend now. She wasn't then, but she is now. So they gave us the medals, and we were walking back to where the student the Olympic competitors were being housed. And we're kind of walking along jauntily. I'm going to give you a demonstration. Yeah, like
We're in.
So it turns out, and this used to have a negative connotation. It doesn't so much anymore, but you say made in Korea. The spindle turns.
Oh.
It unscrews completely. So while I was walking along the streets of Korea, and I had mine on the outside because I was proud, it came unscrewed.
Oh, no.
It hit the sidewalk of an 8-lane highway. Now the disc is rolling towards a rain gutter. We're like, to keep it from going towards the rain gutter. And we salvaged it, but when I pass this around, you will see on the edge a nick, which is where we stomp on it to keep it from going down the rain gutter. I wasn't with Lynn, my partner, at the time. I got back to the area and I said, Lynn, be careful. My medal came off the thing and it's rolling down the street and we stopped it and it's got a dent in it, but it's okay, I got it. She said, oh, don't worry. And she tucked hers inside her jacket. She said, don't worry, I've got mine right here. She lifted up the ribbon and the medal wasn't on there. If you've ever seen those comics where they just turn white, that was poor Lynn. Luckily, it had caught in the waistband of her pants, and she'd been walking around Korea with her medal.
Wow.
But those are the stories that make it all fun. My mother would be really ashamed of me. It needs some little tarnish work, but the event is on the side. Here's the goddess of peace, and here's the white dove / pigeon. After that, I was supposed to ask for questions.
Yes.
Well, actually, that's a great question. How many people have heard of Title IX?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Go Title IX. So, USF wanted to add a football team around the year 2000. And how many guys were on a football team? A lot.
50.
Yeah, and you almost beat Alabama.
Yeah.
But they needed, there has to be equality in athletics. team, they go, where can we get a lot of women? Oh, why don't we create a women's sailing team? So in varsity athletics, it's only a women's team. And our roster is 25 right now.
Wow.
There are plenty of men on the USF. It used to be called co-ed, but now we have to call it open for legal reasons. Yeah, so there are another 15 on that team. Yeah, good question.
Do they get scholarships then?
Oh, don't get me going on scholarships. Right, Sue? College sailing as a governing body will not permit scholarships based on sailing ability. So we are not allowed to give scholarships. However, just this year, USF is funding academic incentives. 3.5 or greater, $1,000 per semester. It is not for sailing ability, it is for having a 3.5 or greater. But no, we're not allowed to give scholarships. It's against college sailing rules. No university or college can give sailing scholarships. I have threatened that I will not retire until that is changed. It's called ICSA, Intercollegiate Sailing Association. Feel free to vent your frustrations. Yes.
Allison, can you give us just a quick story on the wind indicator when you were sailing in the Olympics?
Oh, you've heard that story. All right. So, think 1988. The fax machine was like, ooh, magic. That's how old it was. I didn't have a cell phone, but there was this thing, and you could put a piece of paper in, and it would come out on the other side. So it was really old school. And we had these reports. U.S. Sailing had hired a meteorologist, and all the reports that he received from the Korean delegation were that it was going to be light air. Did you see any light air? So luckily, we had been able to go to Korea the year before the Olympics, and it was windy. And so our coaches said, you know what, let's just be ready for wind in case. Even though all the reports say it's going to be light, and sure enough, it was windy again. We practiced quite a bit in San Francisco Bay. But it turns out after the whole thing was over, our U.S. meteorologist, U.S. sailing meteorologist, went to the Koreans and said, you know, we've been here twice, and it's been windy, windy, windy. You know, what gives? And the guy looked sheepishly, and he said, well, I'll tell you. My assistant was the one who was taking the recordings. Every hour, he would set up an anemometer, that's the little cups that go around and measure the wind speed, on a tripod. And he would come out here and do this every hour so I could record it. He set the tripod right here. Oh. It was so windy, the tripod kept blowing over. So this bright assistant took the tripod behind the building. So all of those later measurements, that's because it was behind the building. I forgot about that. Thank you so much. Yeah.
How many races did you end up racing? And then what was your final score? How did you do in each of them? And how many points did you win by?
You know what? I have actually no earthly idea. The format was very different back then. Each race was easily 2 to 2.5 hours long. They were really long, grueling races. 1 per day. None of this little like short course, hold your hand kind of stuff. 7 races, 1 throw-out. Obviously, the throw-out was the race that we got disqualified. By the time it came to the last day, all we had to finish was 12th or better. We hadn't had any race out of the top 5, so we should have been easily, top 12.
Fabulous.
But there was a problem. But it's on the video if Susan can figure out how to make sure.
How many votes in the class?
We had, I believe, don't quote me, I believe there were 26 women's teams that year,
Wow.
which was pretty amazing. And in the subsequent year, 1992, they added the women's laser and the women's windsurfer. So even more women were involved. However, having said that, I believe that the Olympic Committee is backtracking. They have turned the 470 class, which was anywhere in the world the most popular boat for women to sail, maybe outside of the laser. Now the 470 is required mixed. You must have one male and one female. So imagine 26 boats, 26 women's boats times 2, 52 women. Now we're down to 30 women in the 470 class in the Olympics. There's a lot of politics going on. I step that as much as possible. Big question. Yeah? Everybody's ready for lunch?
Can you tell the story of how you won the Olympics? Because I was reading about it and it was pretty fascinating. Or, you know,
When the sail fell down?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of, so the very last race, all we had to do was finish in the top 12. We hadn't been out of the top 5. How hard could it be? What you saw there was not the windiest. It got windier. We started the race, very final race, only had to be in the top 12. We started the race and made it around the top mark. We were headed down. It was a triangle, windward, leeward, windward. That was the format. And we're on that beach. Spinnaker goes up. It's getting windier and windier and windier. And I look behind me, and it looked like a graveyard. Anybody know what that means? Yeah. Centerboards. All I saw were centerboards. I'm like, oh,
Oh my God.
and there was a wall of wind coming towards us. We got to the jibe mark, and I said, Lynn, get the spinnaker down. We are tacking. This is a jibe mark. And I said, have you ever heard the word chicken jibe? So, final race of the Olympics, I chicken jive. Not gonna lie. We were able to get the spinnaker down. We chicken jived around. And I know, at this point, we're probably in 7th or 8th, but everything's fine. We get down to the bottom mark. Now it's time to go back upwind. And Lynn, I can't see anything. If you saw that wave coming on, and then, it's like whoever designed the 470, it was like a fire hose in the skipper's face. I can't see the waves. They're 8 feet. Lynn would describe them. She would say, big wave with a round front, round back. So I'm like, okay, I know how to steer. She'd go steep wave with a flat back. And it was like that. Or she would go steep wave, steep back. Okay, fine. And we're halfway through windward blade. She said, Allie, that's what she called me. I'm like, yeah. She goes, big wave. Okay. And I'm waiting for the description. She goes, big wave. She goes, steep wave. I'm like, okay. And then she said, as we're up the wave, she said, no back. And so we launched up into the air and came slamming down.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. So there's this little teeny thing that keeps the jib up.
Yeah.
And it doesn't fail catastrophically, but the jib started sliding down before staying. Yeah, it was not pretty. And then we fought for about 5 minutes on how to best fix it. I wanted to capsize the boat and retie that little thing, but she doesn't like the water as much as I do. So she had to do another procedure which could have resulted in the mast slaying through the bottom of the boat, sinking the boat. But she's the boss, so that's what we did. It worked out perfectly. She made the repair. we finished the race, and mind you, this is like gusting to 30 right now.
Yeah. God.
And the problem is, we crossed the finish line. We had no idea what place we were in. You couldn't see anything. We didn't know if we had lost the gold. We didn't know what was going on. And it's a 45-minute sail back to the dock.
Wow.
And it was just like crying, tears. And we get back to the dock, and our coaches know that we made that top 12 parameter, but we don't. And they see us crying, so they think we got disqualified. And so then they're like all upset. So it took a solid 5. It was only when NBC came up and put their cameras in our faces, I'm like, maybe we were top 12, maybe we got the gold medal after all. Like, yeah, early.
That's a story,
All right, now I think we're ready for lunch. If you guys, what's the medal? Yeah, as long as everyone gets to see and not need to polish it up. I don't think I've run it out in 7 years. You guys are. Sorry, I was so tight. Very inspiring. Oh, wait, we got one more good question. So that metal is not solid gold. It is silver core with gold plating on it. The silver metal is solid silver. They're both very valuable. Don't get the bronze. If you go to the Olympics, don't bother with the bronze.